I built a 10-question scorecard that can kill a bad product idea in under 10 minutes. Before you spend a single dollar on inventory, before you order samples, and before you even build a website. And there's one question on the scorecard that kills more product ideas than the other 9 combined. And I'll get to that one at the end. But I built this after watching over 6,000 students go through my e-commerce course over 15 years and seeing the exact same pattern happen over and over again. The seller falls in love with the product idea, they skip the boring math, and then they burn 6 months and $10,000 building around a product that was never going to work in the first place. This scorecard exists to catch that before it happens. Now I'm going to walk you through every question one at a time. And if you're currently sitting on a product idea, grab a pen so you can score yours as we go. And if you want the actual scorecard, I'll tell you how to get it in just a minute. But question number 1 is, are your gross margins high enough to survive? And this is the floor. If your gross margins are not high enough on the product itself, before any ads, the rest of the test almost doesn't matter. You're going to bleed out on fees and ads before you ever scale. Now the way you actually check this is to pull the real cost of goods. Go to Alibaba, get a quote on the unit cost, and then use Jungle Scout or actual Amazon listings to see what the product really sells for in the market. Then use ChatGPT or Claude to look up the actual duty rate and tariffs based on the HTS code. And then finally, add the freight costs on top. This is your true landed cost of goods. Now here's what makes these calculations so important. A product with a 60% gross margin on your own Shopify store can drop to 25 or 30% gross margin on Amazon once you factor in FBA fees. So if you're already starting thin, you're underwater on Amazon before you even buy your first ad. And in 2026, with FBA fees up another 6% across most categories, the cushion has gotten worse. The product has to clear a real bar here, or nothing else you will do can save it. Question number 2, is the demand rising or dying? This is where most people make mistakes. They see a product blowing up on TikTok and assume the trend is sustainable, but it almost never is. What you're really evaluating here is the difference between a fad and a trend. A fad spikes hard and dies in 8 weeks. Think fidget spinners, weighted hula hoops, anything that blows up because of a single viral moment. Now a trend climbs steadily over the years and signals real, durable demand. Now I check for this in 2 ways. I use Google Trends to gauge search interest and Smart Scout to see how the actual product category is performing on Amazon. Right now, Korean beauty is a great example. Just type it into Google Trends and you'll see a steady multi-year climb. So that's a product line you can plan around. Now compare that to snoring mouth guards. A student of mine asked me to evaluate this category recently. And on Smart Scout, it was hot at the start of the year and then it just fell off a cliff. And the reason was simple. The products don't actually work that well, the reviews caught up to the hype, and the whole category collapsed. I told him to walk away and I'd tell you the same thing. Now the trick is to look at the trend before you commit, not after you're already sitting on inventory. Question number 3, will this customer come back? And this is the question that defines a long-term business. If your customer buys once and never comes back, you have to find a brand new customer every single time you want to make a sale. And that's expensive, and it gets more expensive every year as ad costs rise. And it's the reason a lot of successful stores quietly die at the 2-year mark. Now what you want to evaluate here is your repeat purchase potential. At one extreme, you have a one-time novelty product with no reason for the customer to ever return. At the other end, you have a consumable, a refill, or something that fits cleanly into a subscribe and save model. Where your product lands on that spectrum changes everything about the math. Now the way you check this is to look at your top competitors and then ask yourself these questions. Do they offer subscriptions? Do they push subscribe and save? Do they have natural upsells and cross-sells in the same category? And if the answer is yes across the board, repeat purchase is built into the niche. If nobody offers it, that's a signal the customer just doesn't come back. Now in my store, the products that have funded everything else are the ones with built-in repeat purchase. The customer who buys one set of embroidered linens for their daughter's wedding does not come back next month. But the customer who buys a monogram handkerchief because they collect them or because they keep losing them, that customer is gold. And the real jackpot are the event planners and wedding planners who order for client after client. When we land one of those customers, it means dozens of orders per year, every single year. Question number 4, can you show the value in 15 seconds? Now this used to be a soft question. In 2026 though, it's required. TikTok Shop's gross merchandise value is on track to hit $112 billion this year, more than double last year, and almost all of it goes to products that are visually demonstratable. What you're really evaluating is whether the value is obvious on video. If the product needs a paragraph of explanation just to communicate what it does, you're going to struggle on every modern platform. Now, if it's instantly obvious in a single short-form clip, you have a built-in distribution channel. The example I always come back to is a greeting card company that was doing about $4,000 a month on Amazon. So not great. But when they went on TikTok Shop and started making short videos showing the pop-up mechanics of the cards, within 6 months, they were doing $1 million a month. It was the same product at the same price point. The only difference was that the product demoed beautifully on video and they finally put it on the right platform. Now, if you're not sure where your product lands, just search for the category on TikTok. And if people are already making videos about it and getting views, then that's a great sign. Question number 5, is there enough money in this category? Now, this answer to this question depends entirely on what you actually need this business to do. I have students who want to build a $10 million brand. And for them, a niche has to support that ceiling, which means the category needs real depth. I also have students who just want to make an extra $5,000 a month on top of their day job. And for them, that same niche might be perfect, even if a big seller wouldn't even look twice at it. The way you check this is to use Jungle Scout for Amazon review estimates and Ahrefs or Ubersuggest for search volume in Google. Focus on the top 10 listings in your category and just look at the revenue distribution. If the number 1 player is doing $500,000 a month and the number 10 player is doing $50,000 a month, then there's room for another seller. But if the number 1 player is doing $500,000 and the number 10 player is only doing $200 a month, well, then that category is winner take all and you're going to get crushed. So be honest with yourself about what you actually need your business to make. The number you write down here should reflect your real goal and not some fantasy number. Question number 6 is, can you actually afford to do this? A lot of new sellers get this question wrong by being too aggressive with their budget. Let's say they have $10,000 to start and they want to spend the entire $10,000 on inventory. Well, that's how you go bankrupt with a garage full of products that you can't sell. The rule I give my students is to spend half of your starting capital on inventory, but leave the other half for marketing, photography, samples, and the inevitable surprise costs. So if you have $10,000, that's a $5,000 inventory budget and not 10 grand. And what you're evaluating here is whether the minimum order quantity from your factory fits inside that smaller budget. And the way you actually check this is the part most people skip because they are lazy. You have to email 3 to 5 real suppliers and get real quotes. Get the real minimum order quantity in writing. Because the prices you see on Alibaba are just a starting point and not the final number. I've had students who saw a $2 unit cost listed publicly and assumed they could order only 500 units, only to find out that the actual MOQ was 3,000. So you have to do the legwork. Now, most of you who watch this video are just going to nod along, agree with every question, and then never actually run their own product through any of them. And that is why I built a mini app that walks you through all 10 questions and spits out a final score telling you whether to go for it or not. And you can grab it at mywifequitterjob.com/knits. There's a link below. Now let's get to the last 4 questions that catch the most people off guard, starting with the one I see the most students fail. Question number 7 is, how specific is your niche? This is where I lose the most students before they even start. They come to me and they say, I want to sell dog accessories. Well, that's not a niche. That's a category with a million competitors, no defensibility, and no reason for any specific customer to choose you. A real niche sounds like this: calming gear for anxious rescue dogs, sustainable leashes for trail runners, travel-safe feeding bowls for people who fly with their dogs. Each one of those points at a specific customer who has a specific problem and is actively searching for this specific solution. And the way I check this is to pull up Jungle Scout on the top 10 listings in the category. And I look for 2 things. First, do the listings have under 100 reviews or over 1,000 reviews? Because that tells me how entrenched the incumbents are. Second, is the revenue evenly distributed across the top 10 sellers, or is it all going to the top 2? An even spread means there's room to carve out a slice, whereas a top-heavy distribution means the category is already being dominated by a few sellers. Niching down sharpens your message until a specific buyer reads your listing and feels like you wrote it for them personally, And that's the entire point. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you'll make more money this way, I promise. Question number 8 is, do you already have access to your customers? Now, if you already have an audience, a network, a community, or a Rolodex of people who would buy what you're about to sell, you have a huge advantage. I had a student a couple years ago who wanted to sell home gym equipment. And on paper, it's a brutal category, dominated by huge brands, expensive ads, and low margins. And I spent like 20 minutes trying to talk him out of it. But it turned out that he owned a gym and was friends with a dozen other gym owners. And as a result, he didn't need to fight for cold traffic. He had a captive audience and a referral network from day one, so launching his product was easy. Now, if you're not sure where you land, here's the test. Are there active Facebook groups, subreddits, or Discord servers where your customer hangs out? Can you join them, contribute, and eventually pitch without getting kicked out? If the answer is yes, you're in good shape. But if you can't even name the communities your customer lives in, you are starting from zero, and you're going to need a budget for cold ads accordingly. Question number 9. Are you allowed to advertise your products? Almost every month, a student comes to me wanting to sell something they cannot legally market, like toys, kits. Here's the reality. If you can't run paid ads on Facebook, Google, or TikTok, your launch path just got 10x harder. You're stuck with organic traffic, influencers, and word of mouth, and that's a much longer road than most new sellers can afford. And chances are, most of you aren't going to be selling great market products, but I've watched students fall in love with a niche, build a whole brand around it, and then realize 3 months in that they can't run ads. So run this check before you commit. And finally, we have question number 10. Do you have margin left for your ads? This is the question that catches the most experienced sellers off guard because they look at their gross margin and assume the rest will sort itself out. But it won't. After you subtract product costs, shipping, Amazon fees, payment processing, and your return rate, what percentage of the sale price is left? That is the number you have to work with for advertising. And the lower that percentage, the harder every single thing about running this business is going to get. You're going to lose money on ads. You're going to have to lean hard on organic traffic, and you're going to be praying that repeat purchases save you. Now, the piece that most people don't think about is the return rate. If you sell apparel, expect 20 to 30% of your units to come back, which comes straight out of your margin. If you sell something fragile, factor in breakage during shipping. And if you sell anything that has to be sized or fitted, factor in customer service costs. A healthy Amazon seller in 2026 is targeting 15 to 25% net margin after everything else is paid. So those are the 10 dimensions that actually decide whether a product is going to work. And here's the thing I said from the start. Most people who watch this video will keep the answers in their head, and most of them will still order inventory anyway. That is why I built a scorecard, because I got tired of watching that happen. You answer the 10 questions, it gives you a number, and the number tells you whether to move forward, dig deeper, or walk away from the idea entirely. It's free, the link is in the description below. And remember that one question I told you about up at the top? The one that kills more product ideas than the other 9 combined? Well, it's the one most people never actually answer honestly. And the scorecard forces you to evaluate everything. And if you want to see how I would start an e-commerce store from complete scratch today, then watch this video next.